Hi everyone, this is Eileen Burns from Stress Coach Training and Empaths and Sensitives. Now, in this video, I wanted to talk about chronic anxiety and the anxiety cycle, okay, and why fear and a lot of anxiety and stress can lead to what we call the anxiety cycle, the chronic anxiety cycle, okay. So I want you to think about, we're going to talk a little bit about what anxiety is and what stress is. And in many ways, they can cross over, okay? So anxiety tends to be in many ways like this worry, when we worry about something, okay? Often it's before something has happened, or say, for example, we're going to sit an exam or a test, or we're worried about an interview. These are sort of situations where we get anxious, okay? And stress is something where often it's something, it triggers, it's a sense of fear, and anxiety is a sense of kind of fear as well, okay? So there is a crossover. But when we get stressed, it's something like basically what happens, we're in situations and we believe that we're in danger, or we believe that something very negative has happened. And when we think about the stress response and the fight or flight response, it's based on this innate survival response that basically triggers a way for us to survive difficult situations. Now, the difficulty with modern day life is that we often we've kind of took on this innate stress response into situations that are not that life-threatening or dangerous, but our beliefs and our conditioning has taken over, and we put ourselves under a lot of pressure. So that tends to be where our conditioning is making us believe that in some sort of capacity, and triggering something in a capacity, that this is a dangerous or threatening situation. Okay, so you can see where the anxiety and stress, there is very similar situations. Now, a little bit of anxiety is okay, and even some stress is okay, because it can actually, stress motivates us and it triggers us into taking action when we need to. So if it's something that's a stressful situation, it kind of puts a bit of pressure on us, and it actually motivates us to do certain things. The problem is when we have lots of stress on, and it's long-term stress, that's when the problem is. And the same with anxiety. So a little bit of anxiety is okay, but when it gets into chronic anxiety, that's when it becomes a very big problem. And symptoms of chronic anxiety is excessive worrying, okay? The person is a constant state of worrying about all sorts of things, and they have in many ways, no reason to fear lots of things, but they become very fearful, and that is the easiest way to express it. They start to often be fearful of everyday situations, and that's where we can see sometimes things like panic disorders, general anxiety disorders, things starting to get a little bit out of proportion, where people start taking on anxiety about certain things. But also anxiety, and the anxiety cycle can also start when someone has had a situation where they felt kind of traumatized, and it was the trigger. And everyone's different in relation to what the trigger can be traumatic. So something that maybe one person doesn't find traumatic, sometimes other people do. Often situations that triggered, for example, a lot of fear, okay, that is often a very common situation, where then people get really caught up in an anxiety cycle, chronic anxiety cycle, and even post-traumatic stress. So there's all situations that we have in our life that can lead to these things. I remember a situation that happened to me many years ago. I was actually trapped in my car and my car started filling up with water. And at the time, I was still quite seriously ill at the time. So I wasn't very strong. I had serious mobility issues. And I remember in a situation when it was a long story, but it was a flash flood, and my car had slid down into a lot of water. It just, the way the car had to take the engine off, it was an automatic. It cut out, and then all these vehicles and big lorries were putting water over, and the car was moving. It began to sink, and I'm very small. I'm only 4'9.5", but the water was getting so heavy and turbulent, it was like dangerous for me to get out the vehicle. And I remember phoning the fire brigade, and they didn't even know what to tell me, the person on the phone. But what they did say was, we think it's best if you stay in the car, right? Now, in that situation, I was okay. I managed to get out. But I remember my father was quite shocked to what he's seen, because when he actually, it was a long, long story, because at the time, there was a lot of things. People were trapped a lot of sorts of different places with flash floods, but the fire brigade basically didn't come in to help. And it was my father who drove in with a Land Rover with my brother and lifted me out the car. But I remember the scene that my father couldn't, I think he found it difficult to get out his head. But after he took me out the car, he dropped me off at my gran's and went back to the car. And the car, within only, because my gran stayed round the corner from there, only maybe 5 minutes, and the car was full with water, right? So there's a situation where I was fine. I was okay. I got out of the situation okay. But he had this memory, and that, never left him, in the respect that he said it was a horrible thing to look at, because a lot of people didn't realise it was in the car. They actually thought it was an abandoned car. So sometimes things like that. Now, in my situation, I actually already had a fear of water. I had nearly drowned. Well, I had, when I was younger, it was a serious situation where I nearly drowned, and I always had issues around water. So obviously, it wasn't a very good experience for me as well. Now, if I had kept focusing in on that situation, and really kind of, how could you say, looked at the what ifs, I could have easily went into the chronic anxiety cycle, okay? And sometimes there's other reasons why it triggers certain things. I had already went and got some help with already had hypnotherapy on my previous issue with water, and I hadn't completely solved, but obviously I was a lot better with water. Now, if I hadn't been, because that had triggered how can you say, like, memories and emotions from a past situation, this is where again it's feeding something that's already within us, right? So we all have situations, maybe car accidents, we can have lots of different experiences. People can get mugged, or burglary and things like that, and people find these situations, or assaulted. It can lead to this cycle, right? So the thing about anxiety is that, like stress, fear basically feeds it. And if we think about lots of situations, we're looking even at the present pandemic, the COVID-19, and we're in a situation where people are being fed a lot of, in a way, hypnotized, a lot of fear. And things like, if we watch the media a lot, and we're seeing lots of things like how many people die, the words die. The words, the words that we've been exposed to, that you must do this and you've got to do this, and all the negative symptoms and all the words now. In many ways, I understand why, if the government believe that this is a very serious situation, why there is certain things that's done so that it goes into the beliefs, and it's kept so that the public, address certain and do certain things for help everyone. There's a certain amount of that, but there's also that thing that if people already have any anxiety, okay, They already are in fear. They already have a lot of trauma triggers, okay? What happens then is you're feeding that anxiety can lead to all sorts of other issues and further anxiety disorders and further triggers, okay? So anxiety, there's different ways that we approach to help someone with that anxiety. We can help often by trying to address the trigger, but it has to be also, when you're trying to address the trigger, is that you help the person get out of the anxiety cycle. Or what happens, even if the original trigger is removed, often what's happened with anxiety cycles, other things have started to become a trigger, okay? So it's like this cycle that you have to cut all the different things that connect to stop the cycle. So one of the things like chronic anxiety and chronic stress is that we have to help people have the ability to relax. The relaxed response is something that's very powerful that helps the body go back to what we call its innate state of being. And the more that you can get someone deeply, deeply relaxed, it feels safe, it feels secure, and it knows how it feels to feel that safe and secure. Now, in relaxation therapy, I teach a lot of my students that one of the key things is we use certain techniques. We use meditation and things. I'm big because I've been a meditation teacher for over 18 years, and the big thing that when we teach people, how to meditate, right, is that you're helping someone be in the moment. You're helping someone access stillness. You're helping them access peace, and you're helping them get out the egoic fear, the egoic mind, the attachments they have to a lot of stories and how they see things. So what you're doing is giving them a space to have a sense of peace, and it's like a safe space within themselves, right? So that really helps. But when you're learning meditation, it takes time to in a way master, and it's something that it takes time. It's very much about being in the moment, accessing that peace and stillness and awareness, but it does take time, because most of us have been very, very conditioned to be very busy and to follow all these beliefs and thoughts that we have that go through our head. That's just the way we are. And because of the stress response, we are very much wired to look for danger and look for certain negative things, okay? So meditation is one, but the one thing that I find that in the long term helps clients, in a way, in the short term and the long term, because what happens, it gives them respite, a lot of physical, not just mental respite, but it gives them a lot of physical respite, and then helps them further down the line in the respect that it helps them get out of the cycle a lot quicker. And it also makes it easier for them to learn meditation, is actually relaxation therapy techniques. And relaxation therapy techniques basically don't just help the mind relax, but what they're doing is working on the physiological response. And when people are are triggered by fear, okay, what happens, the way that the body is designed to deal with stress and trauma and fear is to fight, flight, or flee. Sorry, fight, flight, or freeze. Sorry, right? So basically, fight or flee, right? Okay, so that's the easiest way to put it, and freeze, right? Now, so you're fighting, and basically that innate response comes from prehistoric time when we had to fight dinosaurs or animals, okay, or we had to fight our enemy, right? And again, the fleeing, the running away, is basically helping us again get away and survive, okay, when we have to run away from a situation, right, and be able to run towards a situation that we need to help. Think about a child running across the road. It's amazing people can actually do with their bodies when they're in the stress response, and what I mean by an emergency response like that, because what happens is the body what happens? The body pumps adrenaline, it does things so that we react, our heart can work faster, all sorts of things happen so that we can push through that situation. But there's other things that happen in the body that stops really working and slows down. So that's why it's not good to have long-term stress and constantly these feelings, because certain hormones in the body are there to happen for a short period. But if they happen continually over and over again, they start basically causing disease and disruption in the body because it's imbalanced and it causes then other complications. So in the stress cycle, the problem is that one of the things that happens is the muscles start getting really tight, the breathing becomes laboured. And one of the things that we see a lot of is this, people with long-term stress, so much tension in the muscles. And that's why when, people go for massage and, body work, a person that's, just one massage or one treatment, one body session actually does not release all the tension that's been in the body for a long, long time. And often we also keep, one of the things about the body is the body remembers a lot of things. So if we've also been in a traumatic situation, it can hold tension, and that area of the body can be held for a long time. And what's interesting is that sometimes when therapists do body work, they have all sorts of really weird and wonderful experiences. Sometimes this happens with clients where it suddenly triggers a memory that they've locked down and they've pushed down. I remember a therapist, well, he was like, I'm sure he was some sort of doctor who'd went into holistic medicine. And I saw him about 20 years ago, and I remember him telling me a story about, he did a lot of body work and kinesiology, nutrition, and he was a naturopath. But he had, I think it was osteopathy or something he had done on this guy. And basically, he did a sort of manipulation. He seen the guy had made this really strange reaction, and he asked if he was okay, right? And he went to go out the room for some reason. I don't know if it was to get water or whatever. And the next thing, he found the guy in a really odd position, sitting up. And what happened, the guy had actually he realised he'd actually took on the position that he had been in a car accident and how he'd sat. And basically, what we forget is that a lot of times, even in the way that Western society has maybe conditioned us or how it's sort of moved us along, is that we tend in the West to suppress a lot of things, and we try and push it to the surface, and we're so busy focused on the future or our goals or trying to think of the next moment that it makes us happy. Often we really resist negative things that happen. And good mindset and healthy mindset is obviously it's very helpful. But what the only problem with healthy mindset is that, and it's not really healthy mindset, but what I mean is when people actually go into denial, or they try and deny certain experiences, they didn't actually feel the trauma at the time, or they didn't release it, they didn't allow it to go. They pushed it down to the surface, and we see this with people with grief who never grieve really problem. They try and deny what actually happens. So again, we have situations in chronic anxiety where sometimes there's things that's been so much suppressed, and then that reaction to the body kind of triggers something else. And there's all these different things that can happen. But when you use relaxation therapy, what happens, it starts to slowly let the person unwind in a physiological way, that their body starts relaxing, their muscle fibers, their nerves, energy blocks in the body start releasing, and they start to unwind, and they start to almost breathe more easily, right? And that helps them naturally be more resilient to chronic anxiety. It helps them naturally, because what happens, the relaxation response basically helps to move the muscle fibers in the opposite way as what they've done, where they've retracted in trauma or when they've retracted in pain. Okay, so I have seen all sorts of situations. I mean, I was a healer, a physical healer for many, many years, and that I mean, Reiki was my first discipline over 28 years ago, and one of the things that you see with healing is this sort of thing. Sometimes when you're working in certain areas, there's a certain amount of physical release. And then obviously the more that you do different types of advanced types of healing modalities, there's all sorts of other things that you see happening, and to different degrees. And again, it's all to do with energy, and we can hold on to energy, okay, and we can suppress energy. And there's some negative, there's some energy that's more lower vibrations than others, and that's what happens with the body. And one of the things that happens is most of us are very unaware of so many of our unconscious beliefs because they're so deep. And we have, I can't remember exactly how many thoughts we have a day, but there are a lot of thoughts we have a day. And you would be quite surprised how many they are negative, even if you are someone, with a healthy mindset. And it's not just the thoughts that's the problem, right? So an odd thought coming in and out is actually not a problem, because it helps us address situations and gauge. So if you're walking along the street and you don't have any negative thoughts, you're not actually thinking about like a car coming when you cross the road. So there's reasons we have negative thoughts. So they're there for a purpose. The challenge is when we have certain beliefs that come over and over again, okay? And if there's something that you start to slow down and be aware of that's coming in, yes, of course, addressing that. But one of the things that I learned in my work is that, I was someone who from a very young age was exposed to a lot of self-help books, and they had their place and they really helped, and there was so many things that I learned from that. But what I also learned is that it can be a never-ending story trying to change people's thoughts, because there's always another layer. Now, I'm 50, so by the time you get to 50, you can imagine how many memories, how many thoughts, how many stories, how many things have happened to you, and how those all connect and correlate. Okay, so you can never completely take people's thoughts away and their negative thoughts in a way away. What you can do is you can learn to help them detach from their thoughts and not get as entangled with their thoughts. It's the fact that as humans we tend to be very entangled, particularly in the West, in our stories, in our beliefs, in our conditioning. And it's that we hang on to. And it's that keeps the chronic anxiety and chronic stress cycle going. And that's why in treating chronic anxiety, we use different things. So we use different things to help stop the cycle, okay, and address the trigger, okay, and we do things to help the body unwind and relax. When the body is more relaxed and at peace, it's less likely, there's no room when someone's at peace for fear, okay? You're either in peace or you're not, okay? And when we're in a state of peace and we can start to be able to be more aware and even to make our life in a way of meditation. And what I mean is, once you've learned really how to meditate, right, and access deep states of stillness and peace, you can very much bring it into your day, and you start to become more aware of the thoughts that come in. And because you're more aware and you're watching your thoughts, and the more that you learn how to meditate and make it part of your day, you're more aware of your thoughts, that you get into a situation where you are more vigilant at what you're saying, what's coming up, but you're coming from more a sense of peace. And even though we're all human, we get entangled up with the story, and there's things that do trigger us more than others, and that's part of the human psyche, okay? But what you do is things start to get less. So when we're treating chronic anxiety, we help them really get relaxed, and that's why a lot of different relaxation techniques are really useful. And it's about choosing the right one for the right client, and in relation to what they're going through, what their physical conditions are, a lot of other factors. And then again, it's choosing wisely what type of meditation tool, because there is certain meditation techniques you would never use on someone with severe anxiety or at certain stages of anxiety, because it can actually exacerbate it. It just makes it harder and longer for the client to actually get cut through a lot of issues. And that's one of the things that I discovered a lot. And one of the other things that even though breathing techniques are something that's talked about a lot, one of the reasons that I don't use breathing techniques right at the beginning is that one of the things with anxiety sufferers, and particularly chronic anxiety disorders and panic attacks and things, is that people get very obsessed about the breathing, right? And the reason, other than the trigger that's causing the problem with the breathing, is that the body is not relaxed. They are already holding a lot of physical tension. The breathing has, and the body structure has been holding a lot of trauma and tension for a long, long time. And that doesn't just go away overnight. And often in society now, a lot of us have got a lot of different conditions. We can have injuries, we can have a lot of trauma, alignment issues for all sorts of reasons. I've been unfortunate. I had lots of trauma to my body. I had bad falls, I had injury and medical injury as well. And structural issues. I was born with a structural issue. So my alignment, I have some issues that actually affect my breathing to do with my alignment. I do get some, when I can, certain types of body work, but it's not always feasible to do with some of the other conditions that I have. So it depends what other things I'm going through at that moment. But these things all help. So helping people readdress their structural issues and their compression. So if you think about it, when the body's tense, everyone's compressed, the muscles are compressed, even a lot of times our bones become compressed, our energy becomes compressed. So to treat the chronic anxiety cycle, you want to start, going to see a relaxation therapist or a stress management therapist who uses relaxation techniques is highly beneficial if you do it the right way and you continue to use them on a daily basis. And then what happens is you completely come off that chronic anxiety cycle, and it's very highly unlikely you will ever fall back into that if you do certain things. Because when clients come, you don't want it just for them to come for that short term and to help them just in that short period. You want to be able to give them tools and the help that means that they don't ever need to come back with that same issue. Okay, so going back to the chronic fear problem at the moment, chronic fear is a huge problem at the moment because people are getting faced with so much of their own, in many ways, it's triggering fear. A lot of people can't face their own mortality if they've never had to deal with their own mortality. A lot of people have never had serious situations where are life-threatening situations, right? So when they're dealt with something that they appear to think that this could be something that could definitely lead to more to their mortality, that kind of thing can trigger up so much fear with people. Okay, so it's a big trigger for people. And then even in many ways worse can be that fear of losing a loved one. Okay, and we all know that death is something that has to happen to us all, but we're not very good at it, and we're not very good at facing it or looking at it and facing it. Okay, so what happens is that triggers lots and lots of fear. And then you have a mixture of other things that we have had trauma about or situations. If you've had previous experience in hospital that have been very traumatic, I know I have. I had life-threatening sepsis. And even though I don't have actual fear of death, there was things that happened to me during that period that were very traumatic, that was hard for me. So there was things that the thought of being in, I suppose, these situations, if we think about it, these things can be triggered. So one of the things that we have to do when treating chronic anxiety, and to help people move from that fear response and worry response and fear of the world and fear of this, is that you have to detach them from all the negative that, or I know we can't in life detach people from all the negative things, but to support someone in the process of starting to learn to relax, learn even how to meditate, and to be more aware of their thoughts. It's healthy to help person remove from things that are not going to help them at that point, things that could add more pressure and anxiety to them. So overexposure to media, that's very negative. Watching the news is always very negative. Okay, these things are always negative, and through pandemic situations and trauma situations, and if you think about situations. I live in Scotland and we're very lucky. We don't have earthquakes and things like that, but often a lot of people are living in countries where there's lots of regular sort of danger in these type of things. And if you're constantly exposing yourself to the what ifs, right, because anxiety is very much based on the what ifs. It's us believing there's something bad's going to happen, okay, or this fear that what if. You are basically taking yourself constantly that kind of stress or traumatic response for some people. So why would you do that? So it's very important that, if you're feeling chronic anxiety and you're starting to feel a bit anxious about things and worried, that you remove yourself from a lot of negativity to build your resilience up so that you can start unwinding a lot better. You can't relax when you're exposing the mind to a lot of fear. So it's getting you out of that cycle, and it's getting you into the cycle of being a witness. Okay, and meditation's another thing, and that's something, if you need help for, get in contact, because one of the things that I notice about meditation is it's easy when you know how, and you're taught in a way that makes it simple for you. And there's lots of different ways and strategies that you can use for people that struggle with meditation. It's just everyone's individual, and I use a wide range of tools to help people access that state. But I just thought I would share this today because I really think it's important that we recognise why anxiety could become a big problem at the moment, what feeds anxiety, and why in relaxation therapy and why in teaching the clients a lot of certain relaxation techniques are highly effective and they should be used at certain stages. Okay, and combined with other things, they work really well, not just to support reducing anxiety, reducing stress, insomnia problems, even anger and pain management. These can really support when used in the right order, and that is the key, and that's a lot of the things that we teach in the relaxation therapist training. So thank you for watching. Bye for now.